So you have everything you need to start writing a story. We've talked about how good writing is made up of an ideas muscle and a words muscle. And you want really strong ideas and you want the best possible words. To build up your ideas muscle, we've looked at the idea of having a character who wants something, they can't have it, so they do something about it, and then something changes because of what they do. And to create a really consistent character, we've looked at two things. Their skills, i.e. what they're good at, what they're okay at, and not so good at. And we've looked at their physical, mental, and social skills. And then we also looked at their personality types, where we saw 9 different types of people who have 9 different deep desires that motivate them and 9 different constant questions that in every moment they're asking themselves. And it informs what they do, what they say, and what they think. So now that we have that character fully fleshed out with the sense of their skills and their type, and now that we know what they want and why that kind of character can't have what they want and what that kind of character would do about it and what would change for that kind of character, it's time to sit down and actually write your story. Now, before you write a single sentence and start working that words muscle, you actually have a choice of what goes next in your story. From the first sentence to the last, every sentence is describing your story. It's describing that journey of that character and their want and why they can't have it and what they're doing and what changes for them. And every time you go to add a sentence to your story, every time you go to add the next line that your reader will read, every time you create that next sentence that's enjoyable to create and is coming out of your imagination and your ideas, you have a choice. You have a choice of these 8 kinds of description to choose what is revealed next. Every story ever uses these 8 kinds of description. In fact, I encourage you to grab your favorite book of all time and look at it sentence by sentence. You can open up to any page. Look at it sentence by sentence, and you will realize that every sentence falls into one of these 8 kinds of descriptions. In fact, most really good sentences use more than one, possibly even 2, 3, even 4 of these different kinds of descriptions in each sentence. So, what are these 8 kinds of description? Why is it useful to know about them, and how will this improve your words muscle? Well, knowing about these 8 gives you a choice before you write any sentence in your book to decide which one would best serve your story. Because I guarantee you, you're using all of these already. But when you realize there's 8 to choose from, you might realize you've been favoring some more than others. And the more you're able to balance these 8 kinds of description, the more interesting your writing will be, the more your reader will enjoy getting lost in the world of your story, and the more proud you will be of your work. So what are these 8 kinds of description? Here we go. First box has to do with what's happening inside of any character. These include the thoughts and the feelings. So the thoughts are what a character is thinking to themselves. So you can ask yourself, what were they saying to themselves? And you could describe the dialogue that's happening inside of their head. And if you're not exactly sure what I mean by thoughts, I don't necessarily mean they're thinking through a problem, but right now in your head, just pause for 10 seconds and notice that voice inside your head that is talking. I'll actually wait 10 seconds for you to do that now. Notice that voice and how it might have been saying something. Why is this guy pausing right now? Whatever it was that your voice said, that is something that might have been happening inside of your character that might be the next sentence you write in the story. Or you could write about the feelings that are happening inside of them, the emotions. So you could ask yourself, what emotions were they feeling at this moment, at that moment? What feelings, what emotions were they feeling? And you can describe the kinds of emotions that were happening inside of a character, because we might not see or know the emotions just by looking at the person. So you can choose to describe the thoughts and the feelings inside of a character. The next two kinds of description include what's happening between two characters. And these two kinds of description are the dialogue and the relationships. So the dialogue, this is what was being said and how it was being said. So what was being said is the stuff that goes inside of the quotation marks, and how it was said is another thing you can describe for your readers. So we could use the sentence, "I'll be there in a minute," that's what was said, but how it was said completely changes the meaning of what was said. "I will be there in a minute," they said happily, versus "I will be there in a minute," they said impatiently, creates a different experience for your reader. So there's the dialogue, what was said and how it was said, and then there's the relationships. So who else is there right now in the story, and how do they know each other? So is there a level of respect between the characters? You could describe that. Is there a level of familiarity? Do these characters even know each other? Does one of them know the other, but the other doesn't know them? Those kinds of things. And you can also describe an actual relationship. Were they brothers? Were they friends? Were they enemies? Were they frenemies? You can describe the relationship and the connections between them. So we can describe the dialogue and the relationships in any given sentence. Next, we look at the individual objects and the actions. So this kind of description is usually the one that is easiest for most writers. We describe the objects, so what the things are, what the nouns are, the people, places, things. What do these things look like? So what does the hat look like? What does the shirt look like? Even including the people. What does this person look like? How tall are they? What's their hair like? What's their eye color? These sorts of things. So the objects. What do the things look like? We can describe what things look like. And next are the actions. So what are the things doing? Now this could include a thing such as a rock rolling down a hill, an airplane flying through the sky, but it can also include the people. Are they running, walking, sleeping, fighting, hiding, all of these sorts of things. So we can describe the actions. One way to think of this pair of descriptions is to think of the objects as being the nouns and the actions being the verbs. So basically, what are the nouns verbing? The objects and the actions. And finally, our last two kinds of description, the setting and the context. Setting is basically the place, describing where this is happening, and context is essentially the time. When is this happening? So setting, where is this happening? You can describe the room around the characters. You can describe the country. You can describe the world that the characters are in. The setting is basically where is this? So ask yourself, where is this happening? And decide what about it needs to be described for your reader. Next is the context. So when is this happening? Is there some kind of an event that is important that's going on around these people? Is there a festival happening? Is it New Year's? Is it some holiday? One example I often use to distinguish the difference between setting and context. Setting could be a school, let's say a classroom, a grade 6 classroom, for example. That's the room. Now that same room, that same setting, that same where is this happening, is very different on the first day of school, which is one context, the when is this happening, and that same classroom, that same setting is very different in a different context on the last day of school. So you can have the same setting, but that setting is very different depending on the time, depending on the context. For example, a graveyard, that could be a setting. A graveyard at 12 o'clock noon in the middle of the day is a very different graveyard than a graveyard at 12 o'clock midnight on Halloween night. So setting, where is this happening? Context, when is this happening? So why bother learning about the 8 kinds of description? Well, we said great writing comes from two muscles, your ideas muscle and your words muscle. You might have very strong ideas, but if your strong ideas are written using weak words muscles, weak descriptions, sadly, you're probably not going to be very proud of your writing, and it's going to be less engaging for your reader. Whereas if you have strong ideas and use strong words, strong descriptions, you can create writing that you will be very proud of. And knowing about these 8 kinds of description will help you create strong descriptions. They will help you access stronger words when describing your stories in 2 ways. 1, before you write each sentence, you can actually ask yourself, which of these 8 kinds of description would be best to come next? Now that's a lot of work, and sometimes when we sit down and write, we just kind of get in a flow and we don't have to think about it. But maybe if you're getting stuck when you're writing, this is a helpful tool to get you unstuck. You can just go through, ask yourself these 8 different questions and decide what sentence comes next. This helps you in a second way by checking that your writing is somewhat balanced. Now, I certainly do not mean you need to have an equal number of thoughts and an equal number of feelings and dialogue and relationships, object action, setting and context sentences on every page or in every chapter. No, that's not what I mean. But you will notice that there's probably one of these 4 boxes that you tend to use the most. And where this is helpful is to go through your writing after you've written a rough draft, when you want to start revising, where you're improving your ideas and improving your words. And you can actually go through and keep a tally mark of each sentence. So you read a sentence and then go, oh yeah, that's a thoughts sentence. And then read another sentence. Oh, that's got a bit of dialogue and also described one of the objects. So you put 2 ticks there. And then read another sentence. Oh yeah, that describes the setting and a little bit of the context. Then at the end of your page or the end of your chapter, whatever it is you're looking at, you can go back and see, oh, I actually described the objects and actions way more than the thoughts and feelings. And in fact, now I can see how my readers would have a strong understanding of what the things look like and what the actions were, what the characters were doing. But my reader probably doesn't understand how my character was feeling during that. And if I go back and include a little bit more feelings, just in 1 or 2 spots, it might really make my words much stronger and make it more engaging for my reader and make me more proud of my work. So there you have it, the 8 kinds of description. You're already using them, but now you see that you're using them, and you can choose to use them on purpose now rather than by default. So you have everything you need to start writing a story. You've got all of the ideas necessary to write a short story or, a 12-part Netflix series or the next great Star Wars trilogy. And you've got the tools now, this kind of painter's palette of the 8 kinds of description where you can choose which of the 8 you want to paint into your story next. What you might start to notice is, wow, I've actually got a lot of these ideas. I know exactly the story. I know the plot. I know who the character is, what they want, why this kind of character can't have it, what they will do about it, and what will change for them. But maybe now that you're sitting down to actually write your story out and you're using these 8 kinds of description, you're realizing now that there's a lot happening. There's a lot of moving pieces here. And there's a lot to keep organized in your own head of what's happening now and what's coming next and what will happen after that. So if it would be helpful for you, I recommend our next episode where we will look at story arcs, where we will take those 5 story ingredients of the character who wants something, they can't have it, they do something and something changes, and we'll give you a template for how you can organize that into different chapters, into different sections of the story, and into different arcs or different circles. And this will be able to help you to plan your story more from the beginning to the middle to the end. So have fun building your ideas muscle, have fun building your words muscle, and just have fun being creative and crafting stories. For the Story Crafting Company, I'm Rob McLeod.